Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to the Watch Box and our ongoing coverage of Baselworld 2018. Now, there's nothing more fun than a comparison test. If you're like me, you spent your youth reading comparisons of Mustangs and Camaros, Corvettes and Porsches, Ferrari and Lamborghini. It's fun to go head-to-head, and it's even more fun when you're talking about top-shelf hardware. So for today's Battle of the Brands, we're taking the best of SIHH and pitting it against the best of the haute de gamme from the current Baselworld 2018 show. So now that we've seen them both, which Swiss Holy Trinity steel Perpetual Calendar sports watches would we place on our wrists? We have options. First, the new hotness, the Nautilus 5741G Perpetual Calendar from Patek Philippe, and the sensation from SIHH back in January, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak R&D number 2, the record setter. We're going to answer that question tonight. Okay. First, let's talk about the watches in reverse order. Let's talk about the newest one. Hot off the presses, out of Geneva, I should say, the Patek Philippe Nautilus 5741G Perpetual Calendar is on everyone's lips. At $119,000 US, it's not the most expensive Patek to have bowed at this year's Basel Fair, but if you have any inkling of the insanity, the outright mania currently sweeping the secondary market for every version of this watch, then you realize that this is fuel being added not to a fire, but to a California scale inferno. I mean, this is a blaze, folks, and now we've just added rocket fuel. So, after 8 years of the annual calendar Nautilus, Patek upgrades its icon. Now a full perpetual calendar, the Nautilus 5741G is Patek's response to market pressure to evolve its Nautilus rather than sit complacent while the market for the watches goes crazy. The prices were rising, but there was no real innovation until now. Now, most versions of the watch had been on the market for 5, 10, even over a decade with, well, honestly, few changes. 5, 10, or 12 years with few changes just isn't acceptable when you're expected to be a brand on the forefront. So Patek Philippe issued a serious upgrade effort with this Nautilus Perpetual Calendar to show good faith. Now, basic stats, beyond the simple movements, we have to talk about the defining trait of this watch. So, Perpetual Calendar with a sunburst metallic dial. There is actually a sunburst grain to this dial that you do not have on a standard 5711. It's not the gradient, it's rather a metallic that almost looks 2 or 3 shades lighter than the lightest blue on the 5711 dial. I would almost say it's a metallic version of that featured on the 2016 anniversary Nautilus dials, and it's absolutely sensational. A little bit sportier, perhaps a bit more youthful than what we've seen on the Nautilus to date, and absolutely the kind of occasion color treatment worthy of an event watch. Now, caliber 240Q with automatic winding, and an exquisite dial side. I do have to give Patek Philippe credit for finishing both sides of this movement, including the side you can't see, to the best standards of Geneva watchmaking. That's integrity, beauty where you can't see it. Nevertheless, this is a legacy movement, and I will say you do pay a little bit of a price as water resistance ebbs from 120 meters on the standard Nautilus to 60 meters due to the many through fittings for the pusher adjusters of the calendar system. Nevertheless, the watch is eminently wearable even with the tightest of dress cuffs. I said it was youthful and sporty, and it is that. It's a casual watch if you want it to be with its white metal and blue dial, but at 40 millimeters in diameter by 8.42 millimeters thick, it can easily slide underneath a dress cuff, and yes, it does come with custom white gold cufflinks from Patek when you buy it. I will say that under 8.5 millimeters thin is quite slim by any standard, but there's that mechanorexic upstart from Audemars Piguet. And again, $119,070 US is the price of admission. There is a bit of a line, and unlike Six Flags and Disney World, even money can't get you to the front of this queue. All right, so let's talk about the alternative. The Nautilus 5741G is a competitive alternative to Patek's own 5726 annual calendar and a meaningful gesture of goodwill from the people in Geneva. The Nautilus is hardly standing still. All the same, Patek chose evolution while AP chose revolution. All right, we're looking back to SIHH now in Audemars Piguet with the Royal Oak R&D number 2. Now, this was an SIHH novelty and the flagship of SIHH for AP. This was leading the vanguard of their fleet. Now, it's wrought from platinum, measures 41 millimeters in diameter by 6.3 millimeters thick. It feels like a lead wafer on the wrist, and it actually disappears. By the time you actually buckle it down, it seems to disappear below the plane of your wrist. And I'm going to show you what I mean in a moment. Now, AP reduced its Perpetual Calendar caliber 5134 based on the same movement. That was 374 parts. It reduced that to 256 parts for this caliber 5133. Now, Patek Philippe's caliber 240Q that you just saw on the Nautilus has over 270 parts. So we're talking serious reduction from the JLC base caliber, which remains hand-finished and the same, and visible on the caseback. That's the JLC 920 Bausch, hand-finished and made in-house by Audemars Piguet. Most of the space savings come from Audemars Piguet's Perpetual Calendar module, the entire assembly on top of the JLC. And I have to remind you, the JLC is about 2.4 millimeters thick. The whole 5133 movement here is only 2.89 millimeters thick. They cut the number of parts in the Perpetual system by 2/3. Now, I'll also say that AP achieves this with a sapphire display caseback, which is not easy because display casebacks are thicker than solid casebacks. Now, I can speak from personal experience with this one because I am personally experienced with this one. I actually got to try it on. I tried the prototype with Audemars Piguet, and I got a good sense of the watch. It wears big, although it is incredibly thin. You really need to look at this wrist shot that gives you the full sense of this watch's true thickness. Let me assure you that when you strap this one down, the watch winds up lower than the plane of your skin on the wrist. That's how thin this watch is. When it's on your wrist, you can actually look at your wrist in profile, and the hair and the skin will be higher than the watch. It's almost unnerving. So, in conclusion, let's talk about winners and losers. I'm not sure anyone loses here because both watches are sensational, and both of them are from the absolute canon of their manufacturer's catalog. Yes, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak R&D 2 is ambitious, revolutionary, and freakishly thin. And I mean freakishly thin. But what isn't it? It isn't for sale. You can't buy it. It's the R&D number 2 for a reason. There was the R&D number 1 prototype that later became the production supersonnery. All that said, there is not yet a production version of this watch, though one is promised. Price, I can't even begin to imagine, but a standard AP Perpetual Calendar Royal Oak in ceramic pushes $100,000. In platinum, with this movement, I wouldn't be shocked if you have to pay twice that. All right, so this is more of an imaginary watch. It's something that it's a hypothetical to be determined. And as they say in aerospace engineering and the aviation industry, paper airplanes are the stuff of dreams. They're always wonderful. They can be whatever we imagine in our wildest dreams they might have achieved. And yes, you maple lovers, yeah, that is an Avro arrow. So, for now, Patek Philippe stands in possession of the field. The challenger from Audemars Piguet lies in waiting, and I can't wait to see it. I'm Tim, this is the Watch Box. Stick with our coverage of Baselworld 2018 right here on this channel. We're actually going to have additional content going live every day throughout the fair. Stay with us for news, analysis, and commentary. I'm Tim, this is the Watch Box, and thanks for logging on.